educating you on the education before unification in Tobago. So after enslavement, education was made available by the churches. After the 1800s, the Anglican Church and the Methodic and Movement churches was offering primary and elementary level of education. So the schools were referred to as parochial schools, that is relating to the church council or a parish.
Doing free colored and black education before unification in Tobago. Education wasn't really accessible to children in the Caribbean in the 1800s, especially children whose parents depended on them to contribute to family income. Girls had to help with siblings and planting, etc., around the household, while boys had to help on the estates. However, there were very few children given the opportunity to get an education. By 1823, there were three primary schools in Scarborough, each with approximately 17 to 20 students in a class, either which consist of either mulatto or African races. After a few years, students completed their primary schooling while others had to drop out due to economic circumstances. Those who completed generally worked by helping their parents. In 1828, the Church of England started a free school in Scarborough for colored children. Graduates of this school, male graduates of this school, had to become skilled persons such as carpentry, accounting, and trade. Female graduates of the school became seamstress which led to businesses in the future, resulting in the lack of availability of education. Enslaved persons did not receive education before the 1830s, except for the very, very few enslaved persons that planters saw potential in or favored more. They were given more of an education than others. The British government Negro Education Grant, along with the assistance of the several British charities, established many schools which gave colored a free experience to education. Before unification in 1846, the British government Negro Education Grant ceased, meaning that there was no more, and that had a negative impact on the entire education sector. This led to the dependence on the government assistance in the form of grants, which were the means of paying teachers their salary. And parents were relied on to pay school fees to assist. Due to the economic and political state of Tobago, the situation worsened until 1873, where all aid was reduced. The government aid became totally removed in 1886, but it led to a strain on the stakeholders in education, such as teachers, parents, and students. Teachers were poorly paid, and some felt like because they wasn't paid enough, they couldn't teach. Another challenge was the unavailability of resources to maintain the schools and run them effectively, meaning that they didn't have enough resources to run a school. Because of the state of the economy, students were forced to stay at home on Fridays to help with reaping crops for the Saturday market, and on Mondays, as this was the designated washing day, which affected the population of the schools to a great extent. There were no post-primary institutions on the island, and it was only the last decade of the 19th century that the wealthiest planters and merchants who could have afforded send their children to Europe to get proper education, while others sent their children to Antigua, Barbados, and Grenada if they wanted to gain a higher level of education. teachers who were so highly respected that they were given a name, a title called vulnerable, which means that they were able to command respect because of what they had accomplished. An example of this is an ex-slave who was known as Norman Mike McNeil, who, according to the newspaper report, began as a slave. He then turned into a butler, which during his leisure hours he taught scripture lessons, which encouraged him to become a regular teacher. Another triumph is that a significant contribution to education came from the private schools, of which there were 13 in Scarborough and environs by August 1888. In the 19th century, the Scarborough Grammar School was opened in June 1888, but it was short-lived due to several factors, one major being finances. Several initiatives show the growing demand for secondary education in Tobago. Ministers of religion taught the sons of the dominant class, and when they were perceived to have learned enough, they would go to work in their father's profession, even though they weren't formally taught.
So, so before unification in Tobago, right? Despite some of the teachers having low salaries, obviously, they began to experience like an upward mobility in their lives. Like for example, some of them went on to having supervisory jobs on estates, and even some of them ended up becoming landowners themselves. And when that happened, it helped them to enjoy more similar social standings as other people who had more high-end jobs at the time. So like merchants and these kind of people, they kind of like experience the same thing and be treated in the same way.